Well, so my flight from France, from Paris to Hungary, then it changed into Hungarian, because before that it was English and then it was in Hungarian. And so that was like starting to feel real and the jitters and everything. And there's people around and you could tell that they were Hungarian by, their speech or even what they were wearing sometimes. But it was cool because right when we get into the airport, they give you a piece of candy that's, very big in Hungary. It's called the Turo Rudi. And it's just chocolate covered. It's almost like cream cheese, kind of like a weird. It's unique to Hungary, I think. I don't think there's a equivalent here, but and they always want to see your reaction because it's just different than anything you've ever experienced, and I loved it. Budapest, they just call it Budapest. That's the capital. Most people see it as one city, but it is two. Buda, the Budaiak or whatever. The people in Buda, they think Buda's the best. The people in Pest think the Pest is the best. I served in Pest, on the Pest side. Now, I think there's more to do in Pest. There's more things to do. It's bigger, but it's also a lot dirtier. Buda is much more beautiful, much cleaner, and it does have the palace on that side, and so there are still plenty of things to do and stuff like that. A lot more trees and mountains and things like that. So I didn't necessarily have a preference. A lot of times I just saw it as one city, but just the river splits it, and I don't know exactly how it came about, but they just decided to call one side Buda and one side Pest. So there's a lot of really cool places, like in Budapest, the Parliament, which is like I think one of the top 3 biggest in the world. And then they have on the other side, so Budapest is split into two. One side is Buda and one side is Pest. So the Parliament is on the Pest side, the river splits it, the Danube. And then on the Buda side, there's like St. Matthew's, Cathedral, and there's the palace. And they have a museum in there. They have artwork and sculptures and just a lot of really cool history and things. That's like one of the places you have to go, the Parliament and then the palace. The food is amazing. It's like so good. My wife's favorite dish, because I cook sometimes too, and her favorite dish that I make is from Hungary, and it's called stacked potatoes. Rakott krumpli is what they call it, but it's just potatoes, cheese, egg, like hard-boiled egg. Like they have kolbas, which is kind of like a sausage, kind of a meat, and they have, I guess the equivalent of sour cream here, and some different spices and stuff like that. But it's so good, and they use a lot of pig fat and different things to cook. A lot of grease. A lot of some of their stuff is greasy, so your stomach sometimes takes a little while to adjust to the Hungarian food, but it's so good. The other thing that you have to do almost every day is they have these little bakeries. They call them pékség, and they're like stands where like a hot dog stand or something where you can buy little bakery things. So like there's peach filled pastries or different things. They have even like pizza, bakery pastry things, and they have sweet or even salty stuff, and it's just, oh, the fresh bread is so good. And then you always buy fresh bread on our morning run. We normally, go buy some bread, and like that lasts only for a few days. It'll have all the preservatives in it. You have to eat it quick, but oh, it's so good. I could talk forever about food. That's like one of my favorite things. Something you wouldn't find in America necessarily. It's called stuffed cabbage. And so it sounded kind of gross the first time I heard about it, but it's cabbage wrapped in, it's like a meat and rice ball. They wrap it up and then they cook it in like tomato sauce or different sauces. You do stuffed peppers too. They have like these Hungarian peppers that you stuff the same meat and rice thing with, and you can cook that in tomato sauce or whatever. I mean, there's different things I've seen, but pretty awesome. So the food's just great. Some of it's different. Some of it's kind of what you'd expect. I mean, they eat pizza. They have McDonald's there too, But like true Hungarian food, like gulyás, I'm sure you've heard of that, They cook it over, it's like a cauldron, like a big pot over a fire, and they like have church events or, people just do like camping or whatever, and they cook it over a fire and, pick your favorite meat and vegetables and potatoes, and it's like, it's so good. One of them, it's kind of more common. It's like a sausage link where like the kind of the outer skin's still on it, holding everything in. And then inside there's rice, but there's also all the parts of the pig or, cow or whatever else that you don't use. So it's got like, the snout or the hoof or, whatever else they put in. They grind it up and they, put it in rice and wrap it in this kind of like plasticky stuff, and you eat that. And that's, and it's dark meat too. So it's like really, really dark, and it doesn't look very appetizing, and you can choke it down. It's fine. Like you can eat it, but it's different, definitely. The other one is this pig jelly, and it's pretty much just pig fat, very salty, and it just looks like fat and kind of like a Jello almost, but not as much jiggle. So it's a little bit firmer, and they'll normally eat it with bread or something, but a lot of times they'll leave the snout in it or a hoof just sticking out of it, and it's just salty and slimy and just fat, and it's gross. And I still have a video of one of my greenies like eating it for the first time and just his reaction, and it's fun. Yeah, so that's something that's a little bit grosser that you don't see as much. That that's out in the country. Maybe you'll see it more, but it's pretty gross. One of the interesting things about Hungary is they still have a lot of castles. Either some of them are pretty broken down, they're just like remains, and others are kept up pretty well. Eger is one of the more beautiful cities in the country. It's, most people refer it to as, one of the prettiest, cobblestone streets and everything. And they have a really, really nice castle that's been pretty well upkept, and you can go on tours and everything. And it's famous for its wine as well. They have these wine cellars that are underground and that are just enormous, and it's insane. But they do have a very interesting history with the castle there, because when the Turks were invading and attacking, they ran out of weapons and everything. And so what they did was they boiled their wine and they poured it on the invading soldiers. The women did. There's a book called the Eger Stars, or the Egri Csillagok, and it's about these women who were helping and fighting against the Turks and the invading soldiers, and pouring it on them and everything. And so that's kind of an interesting thing, that they use their wine for. And they call that, I think it's called like bull's blood or something like that, something blood, where that's like their red wine that they're most famous for, that they used back then. I could probably count on both my hands the number of houses I was in. Most people are in an apartment building, right? Like I said, the 10-story buildings, they're just very small living space. Very few homes, because the economy is so bad, especially on the east side of the country. So there's it's a lot more economic struggles on that side. But overall, as a country, they're still struggling, and families living from paycheck to paycheck. And we see that here too. The schools are an interesting thing too, because their high schools and junior highs and stuff like that, you have to apply for, like we do here at college. So Hungary is a country that's been ruled and dominated by every other country forever. They've been oppressed, communism, the Turks come in. There's still, in one of the areas I served in, Eger, it still has one of the Turk towers. It's like the last remaining one in Hungary, I think, or at least in that city. And you can still go up to the top of the tower and see the whole city. And they would have these, still these remnants, these 10-story buildings, just all cement, from communism, just packing the people in. And so there's still that remnant, and the people still wear that on their sleeve. They still, reflect on it. Some people even want communism back, because then they say, well, at least we'll have jobs, because the economy there is it's struggling. They're an oppressed, they're very patriotic people, but they've been oppressed and they've been kind of downtrodden. And so it kind of factors into their pridefulness and their kind of hard exterior. So they're very loving when they talk about their history, but at the same time, it's almost like a bitterness, because from the beginning of the Hungarian culture, a lot is not known about how it started, the language at least, because the the roots of the language. There's stories and there's rumors and everything. It's just such a different language and everything, but it does have some ties to certain languages. But they wandered, they conquered, they did really well. The Huns, because they have connection to them and everything. But when they finally settled down, they established a pretty nice area. Now, what Hungary is now is a lot smaller than Hungary used to be. It used to be pretty much all of Croatia, part of Austria, a lot of Romania, Transylvania, Dracula. That was all of Hungary, and now it's all Romania. A lot of people in Romania and Austria and surrounding countries still speak Hungarian because of how much the country has shrunk in its size, because the wars that they've lost, and people trying to get more land, and so they've just kind of, a lot of people still wear shirts. There's like this revolution, of people who are like trying to campaign for old Hungary, getting old Hungary back, and it used to be 5 times as big, I think is what they say. And so they look on their past with kind of, hope because of what it used to be, but also bitterness because of all what's happened. The Huns they're most known for their archery skills, and more in particular, their archery skills on horseback. You can go to this place, the city, it's kind of like a village more out, in the country. It's called Hortobágy. There's these 10-foot long whips, right? And, it's a lot of fun. It sounds like a gunshot. I wish I would have brought it and showed you. It's really cool. But they go there and they learn how to whip and everything. They buy tons of whips for their family or whatever. And you can go to different shows, and they stand on 2 horses. And they ride it, and then they whip, and it's like an amazing show, right? And then a lot of them will do, like I said, the bow and arrows too. So that's kind of what the Huns did. They had an advantage because of the horseback riding, right, in war and in battle. But when they used, the bows on the horseback, it was, that's why they were able to conquer so much and to do so well. And they kind of made that, their thing and famous. And so that's kind of what they're known for.